What would be our boy band name? What would we call ourselves? How about Huge Dicks? Like,
It's pretty awesome.
I'm not gonna argue with that.
straight to the point.
The album cover is just us just going, but really it's.
The process of finding a host and actually how we ended up getting Sark. So I used to work at G4 on X-Play, and he worked over there as well. We were co-workers. We were friends from over there, and we just started. He and I kept in touch after I had started working at Machinima, and I had kept in touch with a lot of my friends over at G4, and we were talking, and even before we had decided to have Respawn, I had, there was a thought that I had in my head, which was like, hey, if any of the guys over at G4, if they ever were looking for a spot, we've got plenty here. And so conversations just sort of naturally developed with a lot of those guys, Stark being one of them. And we met with him, and he seemed really enthusiastic, and he ended up coming over.
Yeah, so my origins in this industry specifically are not, contrary to popular belief, they are not pro gaming. I am not a pro gamer. However, I would consider myself an avid gamer, only because I commit so many hours of my week to gaming, even when it's not my job. However, when I moved to Machinima, I was working in the capacity of an associate producer on G4 TV's X-Play, which is their video game review, preview, news show. Over my time at X-Play, I learned a lot, specifically about the video game industry and video games media. And I had a lot of good friends at X-Play, and I had a lot of good times there. But as I learned more and more about video game media, I started, looking at some of these other outlets, because there's the IGNs and the 1UPs, the GameSpots, the Machinimas, and I started looking for opportunities that were a little more out there. Because X-Play is very, very structured, and it's very like an E-News. It's literally like an E, which is G4's sister channel for video games. And I was into doing something a little more wild. So Machinima fit that bill nicely, because over here it was like Lord of the Flies. It was like kids running the show, cats sleeping with dogs, Ghostbuster biblical shit.
I ended up at Machinima through Sark. I used to work with Sark at G4 up until 2010, and he came over to Machinima, and they originally wanted him to edit his own show. And he said, no, I don't want to learn how to edit, so I know a guy who edits, and see if he wants to come over. He asked me, and the rest is history. I'm Sark's editor. And it was me and Sark for about, I don't know the exact timeline on that, but for a couple months it was just me and him. And then they said, oh, we're gonna bring in a YouTuber. He's in our director's program named Hutch, and he's gonna work with you guys on Respawn. I didn't know anything really about it. I knew there was a director's program, but I was just concentrating on editing. So, long story short, one day it was like, all right, Hutch just come down to the office. We're gonna go meet him. So we went to the subway right around the corner from Machinima. And I just saw this lanky, heroin, meth-used body walk in. I'm like, really? This is the guy you want to hire? He's clearly a drug user. But that wasn't the case. Hutch does not do drugs.
The month of December, that's when Respawn launched, and then it really picked up around January. And so it really didn't take too long. It was like December and January. The videos that I was doing at the time were just getting like tremendous numbers. And my personal life in the Bay Area was just like crumbling all around me. Like a 3-year relationship was ending. It was just like it felt like a bunch of catastrophes happened at the same time. And then I remember reaching out to Shore and saying, hey, are you guys looking to hire anybody? Because I'm into trying something new right now. And at first they were a little bit reluctant, because you can't just like just have a few videos do really well and then be like, hey, come on, work, come work for us. So they gave me a little bit of time, like they gave me about a month and a half to see how I would do, and it was after that time that they said, all right, well, let's fly you down and talk to you a little bit, and then I was offered the job in early February, I think.
I definitely think Hutch paved the way for me to get a job, because once they took him in and realized he wasn't just some random crazy dude off the internet, they're like, oh, I guess this works. Let's see if we can bring in that other crazy random dude off the internet, which is me. But I think that he helped me get a job in the sense that they were much more open to the possibility of having people in this community come on board. So prior to Machinima, I was trying to get a job like many recent college graduates, which is not fun for anybody that knows that situation. You intern, you crawl and you beg and you feel really sad all the time. So I had, with a couple of buddies from college, started a production company and quickly realized it's not what I wanted to do with my life. Nor did they. So on a whim, I just jumped on YouTube for fun. I was like, all right, well, my life isn't very fun right now. What can I do to make it better? Which is why the gameplay thing came about. I was just kind of distracting myself from the sadness of not having a job. I was planning on being I think the plan was to be an editor my entire life. I thought that I would get into either television or film, and that was something I was good at. I had I think I have an eye for detail. Like I'm very focused on getting something just right. And I figured I'd always work on other people's stuff my entire life. And then that didn't happen. So that's cool. But prior to Machinima, I should just like paint it like a horrible, like, prior to Machinima, I was sweeping the streets and nobody loved me. And now I'm happy and I'm living the dream. But that's basically more or less, without all the jokes, what it was.
Well, I mean, we started to see a lot of traction with Hutch early on. I remember some of the early phone conversations that he and I had, just because he really wanted to come work for us. And at the time, we were still trying to figure out how that whole machine worked. And do you do it with 2 guys and then later with 3 guys? Because the original model was to say, here's this guy who's the host and the hub, kind of show, overseer, and he's going to be shouting out to these various people, of which Hutch was one of the people that we often shouted out to. So at what point do you take one from the community and bring them in? And then with Adam, it really was a very different, he's a very different character, but he had such a huge following. And so the idea is like, well, if we brought these 3 guys together, this kind of like triumvirate of shenanigans together, because they all kind of have a different type of humor and a different type of way of doing what they do, but they speak to audiences in ways that when it comes together, it's really kind of a cool thing. And so it made a lot of sense to kind of bring them in, and it became the Respawn crew. And obviously you throw in Hollywood in that, and with his contributions and his masked identity and the mystery around that. So all that coming together, I think, really formed a really amazing team, and we're really fortunate. I was fortunate to be kind of part of all that in the beginning.
Both of us kind of trusted that he was experienced enough and talented enough to steer that ship in the right direction.
So I come on and they're just like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, whoa, I can't believe you just said that.
We're role models. Sorry to say. Maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know if that's a good thing. We're role models, parents. Maybe you want to check what your kids are watching at night.